Has anybody ever told you they didn't like the tone of your voice? Well, when they said that, they probably meant they didn't like the way you said something. Well, that's what this lesson is all about. It's all about author's tone. And by exploring this concept, we'll be able to answer our second essential question: how does the author's choice of words allow us to understand the author's tone? Let's start with a definition. If you think about it this way, our voices can be playful, dour, cynical, or even optimistic. Well, the same thing goes for authors, and that's where tone comes in. Tone is the author's attitude, and it can also be the emotions and feelings that are conveyed by a work of literature. One place that people will often get confused is when they talk about tone versus style. Tone refers to the attitude, while style refers to the techniques the author uses in writing. For example, one book can be optimistic in tone and another can be pessimistic, but they could both be written in the same stream of consciousness style. Or one book may be written in a sparse style and another in a rich, lush style, but they both could be nostalgic in tone. And so it's important to distinguish that although sometimes the author's style may be part of the tone, they're not the same thing. So how do authors create tone? Well, they create tone with diction. It's really that simple. When trying to figure out the tone of a text, just ask yourself what kind of words the author is using, and that's your answer. Here's an example. Marla leapt down the stairs, 2 at a time, flew into the living room, threw open the window, and basked in the glory of the freshly fallen snow. Or, then Martha plodded downstairs to the living room, where she reluctantly opened the window to find that the sticky, freezing white stuff was falling from the sky for the first time that year. Ugh. Well, 2 completely different tones. In one case, we have Martha obviously very happy about the fact that it was snowing, and in the other case, we have Marla obviously disgusted with the idea that it was snowing. And those are 2 different tones. Let's look at some examples from the last lecture. How does a book written by a dying man not sound depressing and morose? Well, that's our first discussion of the tone here. Think about it. When you first read what this book was going to be about, you probably thought it was going to be pretty depressing, but it's not. He actually has a very optimistic tone as he writes. And so those are some of the ways that we can begin to discuss how does he do that? What word choice does he use that doesn't have you feeling sorry for him, but instead has you looking to him for advice and believing that he really does have a positive attitude? Well, let's start with the first quote. I won the parent lottery. Now, obviously, that lets you know that he is very thankful for his parents, that his tone towards them, his attitude towards them is one of appreciation. Because if you think about it, winning the lottery means, you've won a great thing. And he's telling you that the parents that he grew up with were a great aspect of his life. Here's another example that I think has one tone in the first sentence and another tone in the second sentence. He says, my mother was always supremely charitable. And then he talks about his dad and he says, and my father would have been happy giving away everything and living in a sackcloth instead of in the suburbs where the rest of us wanted to live. So his mom is supremely charitable. Now to me, that sounds kind of formal, and I'm not getting quite the same tone as I do when he talks about his dad. When he says his dad would be happy giving everything away and living in a sackcloth. So although he's saying the same thing in a way, both parents were very charitable. The words he uses to describe his mother and his father obviously let us know that there are 2 different emotions here in his relationship with his mother and his relationship with his father. So as you read, look for these kinds of examples. Look for the ways that the author's word choice tells you his attitude and also conveys certain emotions.